This week's adventure lands us in Buena Vista, Colorado, which lies just due west of Colorado Springs. The town is a great little mountain getaway and the perfect place to stay for some fun and recreation in the adjacent 1.1 million acre San Isabel National Forest, which is exactly why we're here. Now, some of you may remember we were in Buena Vista a couple of seasons ago to run some of the local hardcore trails such as Carnage Canyon. Trust me, we fully enjoy those part-destroying trails, but we also enjoy the mild, scenic, high-altitude runs. And that's what we're tackling this weekend. We're going to tag along with a group of Jeep scramblers on an all-scrambler run. Dan Cole of Idaho Springs, Colorado, put this annual run together, which is basically a small group of scrambler enthusiasts and friends having a great and relaxing time. Our plan is to run Grizzly Lake, Pomeroy Lake, and finish with the tougher Iron Chest. All of the trail heads are in the same area about 15 miles southwest of Buena Vista. These are fantastic trails for mildly modified vehicles, so you might want to keep these in mind if you are looking for such. The group converged at a local park in town to catch up and learn about the day ahead. Dan spoke to everyone about what to expect, and then it was time to head to the trail.
Amber and stuff like that, but it's just a pretty easy trail, so it's great scenery and it's really gorgeous up there. For those of you that were here last year and you ran Jenny Creek, it's very reminiscent of Jenny Creek.
Well, we didn't make it too far when we ran into our first problem. Rick from Ontario, Canada was having some carburetor problems, and Mike Starkeybaum from Topeka, Kansas jumped in to help. Let's find out from Mike what exactly is going on.
This vapor locked is what's going on. This loop of hose right here that comes up high in the engine compartment like this creates an air pocket up in here when the engine gets hot, and it creates a vapor lock in there with air, and then it can't push, the fuel pump can't push that air pocket out, so it won't push any fuel through it. So we're gonna shorten that fuel line hose and get it straight here on the side where it can pump the fuel through it. Maybe that'll get her going.
Man, that Red Bull is potent stuff. Okay, it's really gasoline in there. But wouldn't that be a great advertisement? With the Canadian Scrambler moving under its own power again, we were back en route to Grizzly Lake. The beginning of the Grizzly Lake Trail is actually the hardest part of the trail.
Dan, looks like we've come to our first obstacle on Grizzly Lake Trail. Tell me what we got here.
We've got a small creek crossing right here. We're going to bring everybody up so they can take a look at it. We've got this little obstacle right here with a couple of different lines on it. You've got a real hard line right here, which then you can come over here and we can, if you actually take the right line right here, this is probably not as hard as it looks. I think that if you come in here and you hang it to the left and you cut it back to the right and you go up those rocks right there, I think that's a pretty good line.
And I understand you have a special driver going on this, not you. What's going on here?
That's my 16-year-old daughter. She's driven the Jeep twice. She's never driven it off-road, not even on a soft part of a trail, so this is definitely going to be her first obstacle, and I'm going to see if I can get her through it without breaking my Jeep.
After dealing with her first diff hanger, Allie skated up the obstacle without a problem. We think she did great for her first obstacle ever. Welcome back to our Scrambler Run in Buena Vista, Colorado. The group is just getting started on the Grizzly Lake Trail. So far, so good. Everyone made it through without any real trouble, and the bigger rigs got to play on the tougher line to the right. After that, it was a pretty easy road up. Even though the trail is easy, it definitely has a danger factor. You travel along many tight shelves that have several hundred footfalls to the side, so you definitely want to keep your eyes on the road here. Along the way, we encountered different remnants of the old mining days. The structures are very interesting to look at, but they can be dangerous, so watch yourself and your kids when you're exploring. After about 2.5 miles and a couple of hours, we arrived at Grizzly Lake, and what a sight it was. The pristine lake sits in the valley of some magnificent peaks and is loaded with fish. A few from the group were smart and brought their gear for some high-altitude angling.
That's better than none.
The beautiful backdrop was perfect for eating lunch and kicking back and breathing it all in. Speaking of breathing, we're sitting at about 11,200 feet above sea level, and you can really feel it when walking around. At these altitudes, you want to take in lots of fluids like water or sports drinks, and take it easy so you don't end up with hypoxia or altitude sickness, as most people know it. With lunch out of the way, it was time to head back down to where it all began. The downward progress was going good, and then disaster dang near struck. The Canadian family scrambler was coming off a boulder when the front right suspension extended and snapped the brake line. All fluid immediately shot out, and they were brakeless and gaining speed fast. Wisely, Rick cranked the scrambler into the embankment and purposely rolled the rig onto its side, possibly saving them all. 20 or 30 more yards and the outcome may have been tragically different.
Mike, this is a precarious situation. Tell me how we're going to get this thing uprighted here on this tight single track here.
Well, safety is a key factor from this point to keep people out of the way. We're going to try to attach that Jeep to a tree and run a winch cable up and pull the Jeep 90 degrees sideways and roll it back onto the trail.
So this is about as bad a spot to roll as you can possibly roll.
One more roll, we would have had some fatalities. That's a pretty bad hill.
We got lucky. Thanks, Mike.
Extremely
Good luck.
lucky.
After some work and a couple of winches, the rig was back on all fours. Someone in the group provided a new brake line and brake fluid, and we're back underway. The lesson learned here is this. When lifting your rig, always check your brake lines to make sure they're not tight at your maximum suspension travel. Also, this is a good reminder to have your rig in top mechanical condition when traveling up here. There was no more excitement on the trail, and everyone headed into the local ghost town of St. Elmo. St. Elmo was founded in 1880 when gold and silver mining brought people in droves to the area. The DSP&P Railroad made tracks to the town, and soon St. Elmo was a major hub for bringing supplies to the local miners. The demand was high since there were over 150 patented mines in the area. There are still about 20 buildings preserved and privately owned in the town, and a general store that operates May through October. The hummingbird population here is mind-boggling. Okay, it may be time to move on now.
Okay, Dan, beginning of day 2. Day 1 didn't go exactly as we planned. We took a lot of time on Grizzly Lake Trail. We didn't get to knock out Pomeroy. That's going to go on today, and then we're going to hit Iron Chest as well. Is that correct?
Absolutely correct. Yeah, we had a vehicle with a little bit of trouble yesterday. As we got on the film, we had one flip over, but everybody was safe, so that was a real blessing there. So
absolutely. And tell me about this Pomeroy Lake. I guess this isn't going to be too challenging of a trail, more scenic.
Right, it's more scenic. Actually, it's a real moderate trail for 3/4 of it. Once you get up near the top, the last half mile of it is considered difficult. It would give a stock vehicle a challenge for sure.
Well, fantastic. We got a beautiful set of scramblers. Let's go look at Pomeroy Lake.
Let's go.
The trail is not too difficult and would probably be doable in a stock 4x4. It basically runs in a gulch between the Chrysolite and Pomeroy Mountains and provides some breathtaking scenery. About 3/4 of a mile in, we encountered the infamous Mary Murphy mine. The mine was discovered in the 1870s and was the driving force for the local economy. The mine was said to have produced over $60 million worth of gold before closing in 1926. When the miners left, so did the train and then the town. The toughest part of the trail is this last steep section that's really not too bad. After the uphill climb, you're rewarded with this magnificent Colorado Mesa and, of course, Pomeroy Lake. The elevation up here is pushing 12,000 feet, and it felt like it. If you look closely, you can see an American flag that flies above the Iron Chest Mine, which we'll see later. Okay, while everyone's eating lunch, we thought we'd give you a little history of the Jeep CJ8, or Scrambler as most call it. This one here belongs to Alan and Sharon Clark of Manhattan, Kansas, and is about as close to stock as you'll come by. From 1981 to its demise in 1986, there were only 27,792 Scramblers produced, of which many went overseas. The Scrambler was basically the SUV of its day. Part Jeep and part pickup with a wheelbase of 103 inches, the Scrambler really was a practical vehicle with good off-road capabilities. The Scramblers are very popular and hard to come by now, so if you're in the market, expect to pay a premium. With lunch in our bellies and all the pictures taken, it was time to head down to the start of Iron Chest, but not before we got a group shot. Now that's a good-looking group of Scramblers. Stay tuned for more Rocky Mountain action as we tackle the more difficult Iron Chest Trail next. Welcome back to our high-altitude adventure. You're just in time for the Iron Chest Mine Trail.
Like we talked about before, we're getting ready to go up Iron Chest here. The first half mile of it's pretty brutal. The boulders and the rocks and such that you see around you now, that's pretty much what the road surface is. There's really no road surface for that long.
What do you think's the minimum to run this trail?
I would say 33s and locked front and rear. Even with 33s, if you don't like the sound of metal on rock, I suggest at least 35s. But I think 35s with a locker in the rear probably make it real easy.
Okay. Well, we're ready for a change of pace. Let's do it.
The beginning section of the trail is rated hard, and if you can make it through this quarter-mile boulder field, you're home free. The trail is relatively easy from here on out, but it does have many narrow sections with massive drop-offs, so be alert. When arriving at Iron Chest, you're sitting at about 12,000 feet and surrounded by some of the most beautiful scenery you can imagine. The Iron Chest Mine has many still standing structures. But be careful when exploring because there are some open mine shafts in the area. We took it all in and then started our journey back down the trail and back to civilization. There was a somber feeling when leaving this high-altitude, incredible area. But the plans are already in the making to come back. You know how it goes. Rocky Mountain High, Colorado. Rocky Mountain High, Colorado.
Mike, we're about 100 feet from the parking lot. What time do you think we'll be at Grizzly Lake?
Last week? Okay, one more time.
Dan, give me your theory on how the Rocky Mountains were formed.
If she falls out, that's okay. If she breaks the Jeep, that's a problem.
Okay.
Oh my God, you know how far it is over that edge.